Right, we should be live. For those of you tuning in live and for those of you watching replay, let me know. Right, give me a quick hashtag live, quick hashtag replay. Today, we're going to be getting stuck into quite an exciting topic, looking a little bit deeper at performance. Specifically, not just diet and exercise, right, but we're going to be looking at hormones, stress, how to overcome stress and how to optimize your hormones, particularly if you're moving towards 40s, 50s and beyond, right, when hormones start to change a little bit for us guys. So we're going to actually get some practical takeaways about a better understanding that achieves a better level of wellness. So probably about 20, 30 minutes, something like that of content. As always, there's going to be actionable takeaways. So this isn't just theory. This is stuff that you can put into your day, your week, your schedule to optimize your performance so that you start to feel a bit better. You start to perform a little bit better, whatever that means for you, whether it means more focus, more drive, more energy at work, or for some of you, it might mean putting in place better boundaries, just feeling better outside of work in your personal life. So whatever it is, we've got something for you in the next 20 minutes. If you are feeling confident and you want to say hi, please do. Right. I know most people tend to like to sort of watch in the backgrounds. But if you do want to say hi, please feel free to pop a comment below, whether you're watching on Facebook or whether you are on LinkedIn. Let us know and be cool to say hi. So let's jump right in. Right. I'm just going to share my screen. So I'm representing today because we've got some big autumn international game on Saturday against New Zealand. So yeah, representing today for you guys stateside. Rugby's one of those games. It's a bit like American football. We just don't wear pads and we're friends afterwards, right? We actually go and shake each other's hands. I know you guys do as well. I'm just being a bit facetious. Right, that should be coming up now. Should be on screen. So I'm going to jump into slideshow view that we can really actually see this. So this masterclass is on beating stress and optimizing your hormones for both weight loss and well-being. So as I said before, better understanding equals better wellness. So let's kind of start with this quote from Richard Jadek, who's a urologist. So he says that exercise will boost your testosterone, though certain types of exercise increase testosterone more than others. Okay, we'll come back to that because that's one of the hormones that we're going to talk a little bit about today. But what you're going to learn over the next 20 minutes or so is how you can boost your testosterone levels for both weight loss and also to reduce your risk of certain types of diseases as you age. Why leptin is the master hormone and the function and role it plays in weight loss. And finally, how you can start to take back some control of your appetite. If you find that you're always hungry and, or maybe you're not always hungry, you're so busy in the day, but particularly in the evenings, it's very difficult to get your hunger in control. And because of how busy you are, you struggle to find the time to exercise. This is actually going to give you some practical takeaways so that you can start to balance out leptin and also another hormone that kind of counteracts and works in tandem or parallel with leptin. And then, of course, we're also going to look at effective strategies for reducing stress that will lead to both better health and better weight gain. So as I said before, this is not just about exercise and nutrition now. This is really kind of moving into key performance takeaways for optimum well-being and performance. So let's kind of start with testosterone. So diagram on the right. Now, after the ages of about 35, a couple of things start to happen, right? Our hormones, namely testosterone, starts to decline. And by the age of 45, about each year, you lose about 1% of testosterone. And that's whether you train or eat healthy, right? It's about 1%. Now, if you don't exercise regularly, if you don't do a lot of the things that we're going to come on to talk about, that can be significantly more. Okay, can be significantly more. But also after the age of 35, the body starts to not be able to perhaps react in quite the same way with the same degree of tolerance as it did before to things like processed food, alcohol, etc. Lifestyle decisions that actually start to have a cumulative effect on the body. Okay, so a number of these lifestyle factors shown on the right can start to have an impact on testosterone levels. And obesity, right? Obesity is one of the most strongly linked factors with lower testosterone levels. Now, if you're sat there wondering, okay, Alex, do I have low testosterone? I'm not sure, right? If any of these symptoms have been present for 2 or 4 or more weeks, right? 4 or more weeks, then you would probably want to get checked out by your GP, right? I'm not a registered medical practitioner. This is not something that I do in terms of blood tests. However, if any of these symptoms have been prevalent for more than 4 weeks, you would want to get checked out. Okay, low energy, depression or anxiety, sleep disturbances, even registered thing like sleep apnea. If you notice a decrease in libido, okay, find it difficult to get an erection or don't wake up with the morning flagpole, okay, or have experienced fertility problems. So any of these, you would probably want to go and get your test or T levels looked at. So what are some of the long-term effects of actually having lower testosterone? Well, there's kind of this slightly vicious circle that as we gain weight, right, as we kind of move from the normal range to overweight to then obese, we lose even more testosterone. So that rate or that decrease of 1%, that exponentially decreases. And when your testosterone's lower, you'll want to eat more, which causes more weight gain and means that you have lower energy. And that then leads to numerous other health consequences, right? Some of which are listed below, right? So lower testosterone has been linked to an increase of type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, obviously obesity, which you've mentioned, and unhealthy cholesterol levels as well. So this is why we want to just be mindful of testosterone levels as we age, right? Particularly past the age of 35 into 40s and 50s. So I borrowed this from a client, made a joke, who was going through some of this information with some clients yesterday. Exercises that can alter testosterone levels. So studies have found that the 2 best types of exercise to alter testosterone levels are weightlifting, specifically resistance training, right? Which generally for boosting testosterone levels the most, we would want to concentrate on strength training, resistance training. So that's probably rep ranges in between sort of 3 to 6, lifting heavier weights, right? But there was increases shown with hypertrophy weightlifting, which is kind of in the rep ranges of like 8 up to 15, right? And also high intensity interval training has been shown to boost testosterone by as much as 18%, right? And the type of hit is usually where you have 60 to 120 seconds of rest, and you're looking at 90 to 95 exertion. Right? That was what was conducted in the study that proved this. Now, what's not good for someone that's already got low testosterone levels, right, is chronic endurance training. So 90 minutes plus of cardio, because what that does is that produces a spike in cortisol, the stress hormone, right? And it signals muscle to break down, right? Because you need to fuel your exercise, right? And sometimes, in some cases, protein is easier to break down and use rather than stored fat. In fact, the body would prefer to do it, right? And if your muscle size starts to decrease, so does your testosterone. So a couple of practical things here. Afternoon exercise is best for boosting testosterone, particularly weightlifting or high intensity interval training, right? Whilst morning exercise is best for kickstarting your metabolism. And we'll go through why morning exercise as well is kind of better for not only kickstarting your metabolism, but also burning fat. It's actually, you're about 3 times more efficient exercising in a fasted state, which most of us, it's probably the best time to do that is the morning. Okay. So other ways that you can boost testosterone other than just exercise, increase your protein levels. So that one thing that I do with my clients is we get very analytical on the data, the KPI of how much protein you're eating. Right? First of all, it's just getting the protein in there. And then we start to look at where that protein source is coming from. So it's a dual track approach. And you want to be eating, the first milestone is towards 100 grams of protein, and then working up towards 1.8 grams per kilogram of body weight, and mixing in good fats, reducing processed carbohydrates. Now, you also want to reduce or manage your stress level. Now, there's a couple of things here which cause stress specifically, right? Chemicals, emotions, physical stress, and electromagnetic. So I'll just go through briefly what we mean by those. Chemical stresses are things like BPAs in water bottles, right? Irradiated foods, chemicals that have been fertilizers that have been put onto our food, okay? So every time we ingest those, it causes a bunch of free radicals in the body, which basically causes an inflammation and a stress response. Emotional stress, don't have to go through too much of the detail of what causes emotional stress. I'm sure you can imagine a couple of things. Physical stress from working out or having a busy, demanding physical job. And electromagnetic stress coming from increased things like Wi-Fi, phones, using your phones all the time. That causes a stress on the body as well. So we want to manage and in a lot of cases, limit how much stress we're putting on the body in terms of these 4 types. Now, we also want to get access to sunlight, grounding, and sun gazing, right? That doesn't mean kind of staring right at the sun with your eyes, but just getting out, face towards the sun, and supplement with vitamin D and or cold exposure in winter, which does a very similar sort of thing to getting out in the sun, right? Getting out in the sun produces vitamin D. So if you can't, we live in Britain, for example, it's cold, it's rainy. Most of us are vitamin D deficient. Take a supplement, and cold exposure has been shown to actually mimic in the body some of the similar things that sun exposure does, right, in winter months. Increase zinc and magnesium. You can take these in a supplement, a ZMA supplement, and improve your total sleep. Studies have found that less than 5 hours will decrease your testosterone by as much as 15%, right? Huge amount. And obviously reduce total alcoholic intake. We're not talking about abstinence here. It's just reducing it over time, not kind of going into this kind of binge drinking, abstinence in the weekend and then all bets are off at the weekend, right? Just reducing and being aware of how much alcohol we're consuming. So that's it for testosterone. I wanted to now move on to talk about the hormones, the 2 hormones that control hunger. And this is the story of leptin and ghrelin. Now, I said before, leptin is considered by many to be the body's master hormone. Now, have you ever wondered why studies have shown that between 90 up to 95% of people, depending on which study, right, who go on a diet to lose weight, they end up regaining that weight within a year? It's like, why is that? Now, there's a whole part of this that goes into looking at behavior change, right? Psychology. And on my program, that's one of the fundamentals that we look at. But let's look at some of more of the scientific elements just for a moment. So let's consider leptin and ghrelin, because these are the big players when it comes to appetite response. So ghrelin is effectively the hunger hormone. It's made in the stomach, and it will tell you whether you're full or not. Leptin is what we call the satiety hormone. And this tells us whether you've got enough energy, enough stored fat, so we can stop eating or continue eating, okay? And that's created in fat tissue, adipose tissue. And they both of these hormones will bind at the hypothalamus, a walnut-shaped part of the brain. You can see it in the image there on the right. Right, they will bind at the hypothalamus to act as a signal. Right, that's basically simple terms. That's what a hormone is a signal, right? And generally, the more fat you have, the more leptin you make, the less food you'll eat and the higher your metabolism will be, right? And conversely, the less fat you have, the less leptin you eat and the hungrier you'll be. So basically for weight loss, the more leptin, the better. But if you kind of ever wondered why fat folks or people that are fatter carrying more body weight, like why they don't magically stop and start losing weight. Now, the big kicker here is that most people that are overweight and obese, a very, very large proportion of them have become leptin resistant. So they're on this consistent cycle of eat more to gain more body fat. That more body fat means there's more leptin in the fat cells, but too much fat is stopping that leptin signal from reaching the hypothalamus. And the brain then thinks you're starving, which makes you want to eat. You get fatter, you get hungrier, and so on and so on. And past a certain level, right, having more body fat can actually completely screw up your appetite signals and make you hungrier and hungrier, which is what most people, most clients that come into my programs talk about, kind of that hunger in the evenings, that I just feel like I have to snack, or I just feel like I need a bigger meal, right? Because otherwise I feel hungry, I feel starving. Most of the time it's because, well, a lot of the time, it's because they're leptin resistant, right? So one of the things that we have to do through the nutrition protocol is start to increase that leptin sensitivity again and allow it to start binding at the hypothalamus. Now, there's a couple of things that we can do here, a couple of basic things. Right? It's more advanced things, and we talk about some of these in my program, but these are some of the basic things that you can do to make sure that there's less ghrelin, right? And also that your leptin is able to bind at the hypothalamus. So taking fish oils, omega-3 fatty acids, either omega-3s as a supplement or krill oil is great here. Sleep. So generally, to make sure that we are producing enough leptin and we are making sure that it can bind at the hypothalamus, and we don't disrupt insulin metabolism as well. We want to aim for 7 to 8 hours of sleep. And in fact, we're going to talk about sleep in a bit more detail in a second, but I cannot stress how important this is. If you're thinking that the first thing that you need to do if you're overweight or obese is to go on a diet or start exercising 4 or 5 times a week, stop. Right? You'd be better off exercising once a week and sorting out your sleep schedule, sorting out your stress, right? Because if you can start to bring down your stress, start to look at your inflammation levels, then your body starts to recover effectively, your hormones get balanced, and your body goes into homeostasis. That allows you the energy to then start to exercise and focus on exercise and nutrition. Whereas if you do it the other way around, what happens for a lot of people is they burn out. So in addition to fish oils and sleep, you can start to, and studies have shown this, that for people that are overweight or obese, leptin ghrelin ratios can be improved by a lower carbohydrate diet and a higher fat content diet. Okay, so it doesn't mean like going on a keto diet, right? It just means being aware of how much carbohydrate you're having, particularly processed carbohydrate, coming down to this last and final point. Now, processed foods, the easy way of identifying processed foods is they've got a multi-ingredient list on the back. So if you're looking at what's in my food, right? If you're looking at, let's say, got chicken breasts or tomatoes, it'll generally say one thing, right? Or it might have a couple of stabilizers in there. So it's minimal processing. Now, a lot of things like protein bars, a lot of things like sweets, a lot of things like donuts, you read the back of it and it will have tons and tons of ingredients because it's highly processed in order to get you that finished product. So in order to reduce, or in order to focus on reducing processed food, any food with 5+ ingredients, you want to minimize or limit those and make sure that you move to having higher fat products, right, rather than higher carbohydrate processed products. This will start to allow you to regain balance so that you can then lose weight effectively, right? So we're going to come on to the final look at hormones now. We're going to look at the sleep cycle and then two other hormones in particular. So this is just one thing I want to stress, right? Is this kind of basic equation here that lack of sleep, and you know, I pride myself in getting up at 5 o'clock most days. Now that the clocks have gone back, it's more like sort of 5:36, if I'm honest, right? Because I'm sort of getting a bit more conscious of my own circadian rhythm. But in our culture, a lot of the time it can be almost cool to like go through this hustle. I survive off 5 hours a day, right? For weeks, months, years even. Now, let me just stress that lack of sleep means or is a stress on the body that will lead to additional weight gain, that will lead to premature aging, hair loss, hormone imbalances, infertility, and lower immune function, right? Your sleep is one of the most important things, far more important than exercise, as important as nutrition when you're looking at well-being and weight in order to optimize, right? So let's just talk about some of the different types of sleep. There's three main stages. There's deep sleep, light sleep, and REM sleep. Now, deep sleep is when the physical repair takes place, and you want to be aiming for about 1.5 up to 2 hours of sleep. Now, the reason why this is so powerful is because if you're able to spend more time in here, this is actually when your muscles rebuild. So people think that when you go to the gym and you know doing bicep curls or whatever you're doing, right? That's when you're building your muscles. That's when you're actually breaking your muscles down. You're putting tiny little micro tears in the muscle fibers, which then when you sleep and take on adequate nutrition, repair. So the greater amount of time you can spend in deep sleep, the more your muscles can recover and the greater extent to which they can grow. And then back to testosterone, the more testosterone you can produce, and therefore you start to impact on things like weight gain, etc. Right? Now, light sleep is when most of your immune system repair takes place, and this prevents obviously illness, sickness, etc. REM sleep is when most of your mental repair will take place. Right? So if you ever wake up maybe a little bit sluggish, it's probably because you haven't had that much REM sleep, or perhaps you haven't had enough total sleep, or you've had your last meal has been kind of just before you've gone to bed. So when you want to be resting, you're actually digesting, right? So the two kind of work contradictorily. And you want to be aiming for about 1.5 hours. Now, something that you can use, fantastic bit of kit you can use here is an Oura ring. Now, this little bad boy has an app that you connect to your phone. They're not the cheapest things in the world. I think there's something like between $300 and $400. I think you have to buy them from the States, but they are the best thing on the market for tracking sleep. They've also got activity trackers on them, and they measure other important well-being factors like heart rate variability as well, which is a key marker when looking at overall health. So invest in an Oura ring if you haven't got one already. Christmas is coming up, Black Friday, they might have a deal on, for example. Go to Oura, just type it into Google. So what are the hormones associated with sleep? There's two hormones that we're going to talk about, okay? And that is cortisol, the stress hormone, and melatonin, the sleep hormone, okay? Now, cortisol, despite us kind of terming it the stress hormone, it occurs naturally in the morning. As the sun comes up, the sun has a very concentrated amount of blue light in the morning. And what that blue light does is it causes a cortisol cascade in the body, which then sets in motion a number of the sort of bodily functions, waking up, right, to start with, and then movement, getting rid of waste, etc., moving you from kind of sleeping brainwaves into kind of beta brainwaves, more sort of alert brainwaves, right? And melatonin, the sleep hormone, signals to the brain that the body is ready for sleep. So melatonin has two roles when it comes to circadian rhythm, which is basically the body's natural waking, sleeping cycle. First, it entrains the circadian rhythm within the whole system to align to environmental cues. And then secondly, it promotes the onset of sleep, right? So what happens in the day is the sun comes up, blue light wakes you up. Throughout the day, sun comes down, changes its light profile, goes to more infrared, right? That infrared and darkness, the arrival of darkness, signals to the body, right? It's no longer daylight. We can actually start to go to sleep now, and the body starts to produce melatonin. Now, the problem is with these artificial lights that we've got is that they have the blue light profile in them is 4 times stronger than that of the sun. Okay. So what it's telling your body is that it's the middle of the day. And if you're exposing yourself repeatedly to blue lights like this, you know, watching TV without kind of consideration of your eyes in a highly lit area, or working late at a computer, again, repeatedly, you're increasing the amount of cortisol in your system, which blocks the production of melatonin. So a number of your nighttime recovery processes can't happen anywhere near as effectively. So how can you start to maximize your well-being so that you have less propensity or less risk of certain diseases later on in life, and also reduce stress and improve your ability to lose weight? Well, here are some kind of takeaways. And for anyone watching that's registered for this event, I am going to send the slides out afterwards, so you'll have access to this, right? Now, you want to get to bed by about 10 o'clock, right? Aiming for 7 to 8 hours. Now, you know, I know there'll be many of you watching thinking, well, Alex, you know, I've got a really tough job and I work 12 to 14-hour days. So do I, right? A lot of the time, if I'm doing consultancy and coaching work, I'll kind of do 10 to 12 hours standard, right? So it's really just a choice that you have to make, a lifestyle choice. How can I use my energy most effectively? And do I need to stay up repeatedly to midnight, 1 o'clock? Or actually, can I start to bring it back maybe just by an hour at first? So if you're going to bed at midnight, can I bring it back to 11 o'clock, right? And then 2-3 months later, bring it back to 10 o'clock. Now, you also want to make sure that your last meal is 2 to 3 hours before your head hits the pillow. That allows it enough time to go through the digestive tract to be absorbed, and that when your head does finally hit the pillow and you go off to dreamland, you don't have anything in there that's actually trying to be digested, and your body can actually go into recovery mode. If you don't do this and you have your last meal just before you go to bed, what you'll probably find is that you wake up feeling a little bit sluggish, maybe a little bit of brain fog. Okay. Now, reduce exposure to bright light. So after this masterclass, my blue light blocking glasses will come on. Anyone that's interested, just drop me a message. I will share the exact brand that I use. I give it out to all of my clients. You will notice, if you start to wear a pair of blue light blocking glasses that actively block the correct portion of light between, I think it's 500 and 550 nanometers, you will feel it instantly from the first day that you wear them, right? You will just start to feel a little bit more tired because of exactly what I've been saying, right? The fact that all of these lights are producing a cortisol response, which is keeping you alert and awake. So also avoids consumption of stimulants, coffee and alcohol. Again, the Aura Ring's pretty cool because you can actually see how your heart rate, for example, reacts. I noticed that my resting heart rate when I go to sleep is about 40 beats per minute. Now, when I have alcohol, I don't really have coffee much past kind of like 1 or 2 o'clock for this reason. But if I have alcohol in the evening, I'll notice that it will go 55, 60 for quite a period. And my average will maybe even creep up to 50 as well. Exercise in the morning, we've talked about why that's important, right? Because that's going to increase your fat burning propensity and ramp up your metabolism, right? Aiding in weight loss. Intense exercise. Now, this should be avoided later in the evening. So the best window for any intense exercise is probably kind of 4 o'clock-ish, right? You don't want to be doing it much later. Now, you know, the fact of the matter is that we're all busy, right? Generally, exercising of any sorts is better than not doing it at all. But if you're kind of doing heavy resistance training, or if you're doing high intensity interval training, you'd be better off trying to do it a little bit earlier rather than kind of doing it 8, 9 o'clock at night. Also, if you find that you're quite stressed because of work. You've got a lot going on in your mind. You're trying to balance multiple things. You've got a young family, or you've got a, even a slightly older family that you've got to provide for. You've got numerous competing responsibilities. Sometimes having or even sometimes all of the time, having what I call a high performance morning and evening routine can help. And specifically, a couple of tools that I use here are journaling and meditation, which can start to distill the mind, get things that are circling out, which allow you to calm and then move into sleep much easier. So this is particularly helpful for anyone that has sleep problems. Now, we have a whole set of morning and evening routines that we do as on Reignite Pro as part of the high performance, the third pillar of transformation, high performance routines. But journaling and meditation are two that you can look at just to implement for 10 minutes right into your day and start to notice a difference in terms of stress response, or how you feel right in relation to a stressed out state. Sorting out your outer game, so having focus time on planning, time boxing and scheduling. The way I do this, for example, is a daily stand up in the morning where I'm planning out personal and professional things within the day, and I'm time boxing not just my meetings. Every meeting I go to has an outcome, otherwise I don't attend. Right, but I'm looking at not just my meetings, I'm looking at the task list that I've got. Is that aligned to a goal? And time boxing it within my day. Okay, so as I start to plan and focus on that outer game, I control my stress levels because I know that there's a plan in place for me to achieve my goals. A lot of stress comes from not having a plan or not feeling like you're in control. Supplement with zinc and magnesium we've talked about already. And in the spring and summer, I'm not suggesting that you necessarily do this right now because it's autumn, winter in the UK. But in the spring and summer, sun exposure and grounding, so going out barefoot onto a patch of grass, right, staring up at the sun, not directly at it, but with your eyes closed towards it. That will help reset your circadian rhythm and reduce stress. And then in winter, as I said before, vitamin D and cold exposure will mimic that, okay, mimic that same effect. So we've gone through, we're going to have a look at what Dave said in just a second, but we've gone through stress, cortisol and melatonin and sleep. We've gone through leptin and ghrelin with relation to hunger and obesity, and we've also gone through testosterone. Now, there's a couple of guys that just really have focused on these, a holistic system that includes some of the stuff that we've talked about here. Dave, for example, you can see 60-year-olds on the left. I'm just gonna hit play for a second because I think Dave's got a little snippet here of like his thoughts.
The number one thing that made me choose your program is your promise. Your promise was in 12 weeks, I will teach you 12 years of habit to sustain this thing. That's what I needed. I know I needed that. I knew it at the time, and I know it now. And that's the value that I've gotten. So I mean, that's maybe the biggest transformation is understanding that mindset. I did not know how to do this prior to this program. I tried multiple times and I failed every time. Now I believe firmly I'm on the path to success. I believe that I can continue to do this thing. Mostly because I no longer believe in the all or nothing mindset.
So what Dave's talking about there is that he's taken a health system, right? A number of pillars of transformation that we talk about. Of course, there's an exercise component. Of course, there's a nutrition component. But there's also this high-performance lifestyle routines, of which some of the stuff that we're talking about from a hormone perspective falls into that category. And then, of course, there has to be a mindset component. This system has allowed him, in 12 weeks, he lost 16 pounds. But it means that he now has a system ongoing. One of the things that he really wanted at age 60 was a system that would take him to his 80s. He didn't want to look like Arnie. He didn't want to be muscle bound and ripped. He just didn't want to have the body that COVID had given him over the last couple of years. And he didn't want the bad habits, right? He knew how to exercise. That wasn't the problem we were trying to solve. He just needed some more additional knowledge and accountability and an ongoing system that fitted his specific lifestyle now. Okay, and for him, really, that was about programming the high performance mindset and ditching that all or nothing mindset. And then we've got Tom, who, again, stateside, busy director. He actually lost a little bit more, lost 20 pounds in 12 weeks, started to put in place better boundaries with work and free up time and energy because of a lot of the stuff that we were doing in the nutrition, looking at hormones, looking at sort of broader lifestyle routines, that he was actually able to free up energy, right? And kept the weight off for 6 months, right? And then a further 6 months after that. So it's not just about losing the weight, right? It's about losing it, keeping it off, and keeping it off ongoing, right? Which is what an effective system will do. Anyone can lose weight, right? I often say to guys when I'm talking to them, like, you know, how much weight do you lose? And they say, oh, I lost 3 stone on this keto diet. I'm like, cool. How much do you weigh now? It's like, no, well, you know, I've obviously put that on and then some. We didn't actually lose it then, right? You have to have, as a successful professional, a system that allows you to lose the weight and keep it off from a health and a performance perspective. So what I'm gonna do is, I kind of alluded to this in an email that I sent out. Anyone that actually just wants the opportunity to look at themselves holistically, physically and mentally, not just the exercise plan and diet plan, right? This certainly isn't that, right? But if you want to start firing on all cylinders again, you're ready, and you think now is the time to invest in yourself and your health for your future, your family's future, right? You're tired of kind of waking up with lower energy levels, lower motivation, you're not consistent, right? That actually just starts with one simple conversation, right? It's not a sales call. You won't even be able to join the program on this call, right? But what I would want to stress is that from next Monday, we are going to be doing a Black Friday sale. Now, I've never done a sale before, so I don't know how this is going to go. It could fall flat on its face, or it could have loads of takers, right? But we are going to be offering as much as 50% off, particularly one of the new programs that we launched quite recently. I've said I've never done this before. I don't think I'm ever going to do a discount as much as this, right? And part of the reason is I want to get some more people in the program to help this side of Christmas, not just waiting for people that want to do it in January, right? I know I'll be busy in January. I know that we'll get some results then. This is kind of for people that want to kind of get started now so that they don't put on half a stone or a stone over Christmas. And then they've got to work back when, you know, when kind of their chips are down, you know, in January. This is for those people. So this is going to be available from Monday, the 21st. If anyone does want to take advantage of this, I'm going to put a link to book in some time into my diary just to start, you know, for 15 minutes of open and honest conversation, find out a little bit about what you're looking for specifically, some of the things that you struggle with, and also just to see if any of our programs would be a good fit. Now, obviously, you know, the 50% is going to last until the end of Black Friday, possibly Cyber Monday. Haven't decided, but there will be limited spaces, right? We haven't worked out exactly how many, but there won't be sort of umpteenth of these available. So if you are kind of on the fence, or you have been on the fence before and thinking, well, look, maybe now is the time to invest in me, so that I can be there for not only myself, but fill up my cup so that I can fill up everyone else's. I'm tired of putting myself second and, you know, a kind of burnt out version of me getting projected into my personal life and work's taking everything. Then it's probably the time to at least have a conversation and see what we can potentially do to help. Because, as I said, this is a system that we can teach you in 12 weeks, but it is a system that lasts ongoing for 12 years plus, right? And it's not just me saying that. Dave famously quoted that, and you've seen that. So I'm going to put the link to book a call after this masterclass. If you do want to do that, please feel free, go ahead. So I think, let me stop sharing for a second and find out where we are. That's just about all she wrote for today. Hopefully that has been useful, and there's been some new insights, some takeaways in there for you guys watching. Thank you for anyone that's watching live. Anyone that also has watched on replay, I said we'll be sending out the recording and also the slides for anyone that's registered to this event. Other than that, please, guys, stay safe. And until next time, take care.